Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have former Speaker of the House Greg Hughes and former State Senator Scott Howell. Gentlemen, great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, the Senate trial going to kick off here in a couple of days. Scott, let's start with you. What are the keys you will be watching for as that happens?
Well, I'm going to be watching on the constitutionality of it, and I think the underlying effect of this is if you're going to have a trial, you need to expect some outcome. And I'm still not 100% convinced that the outcome of this would be like, we can't do anything. It's just one of those facts, and when the Supreme Court justice is not there to overrule, to be there to rule and to guide, it makes me wonder. Now, maybe it's a feel-good thing, but I don't think you have a trial to have a feel-good thing. So
okay.
I'm going to be watching that.
I'm going to hit on that with you again afterwards, but first, Greg,
Sure.
Let's bring you into the conversation. What are you watching for?
Well, I think there was already a vote that took place with the question of whether it was constitutional or not. The votes that came in make a conviction on an impeachment impossible. So, look, if there's been a lot of narratives out there to bring people together, if bring people together means think of things only the way we do, I don't know that that's really unity or that's going to promote unity. So I worry about an impeachment like this. We only had two in American history in two completely different eras prior to President Trump's presidency, and he was impeached twice. And what we don't want to see is that become political weaponry. Impeachment cannot be on either side, for Republicans or Democrats, a partisan tool to attack. And I fear that with this trial, that's what you're seeing.
Okay, Scott, that's what I wanted to dig into more. We've already had the one vote that, you have to look at that and say, that tells us what the outcome of this is going to be. So why move forward with it?
Well, Glenn, you're exactly right, but I take the Mitt Romney approach on this. I believe Mitt's got the right balance on it. We ought to hear it and see where it goes. And again, I'll pivot back to this thing. When you go to trial, you're expecting some type of outcome. But the constitutional side of this is just not determined in my mind when it's not a sitting president. So I think Mitt's got the right balance on it, and I think we'll go ahead and hear it and see what happens. Take it from there.
Greg, I wanted to ask you on one point real quick. If this is not constitutional, as many of the senators have already shown they believe it's not, what message does that send? Let's put President Trump aside, and what message does that send to a president down the road in your last few months in office?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's only one reason you would even attempt something like this, and that is that there is a provision that if you are convicted in that impeachment by the Senate, you would not be able to run again. And so you can easily take from the events happening right now that there is a targeting of a potential political enemy in the future. You don't want to see President Trump run again, so you want to eliminate that possibility with a successful conviction in the Senate. But that will be, again, that's the weaponization of the impeachment process, which, having been a presiding officer of a legislative body with a fellow legislator who served in the legislative body, the impeachment process is a separation of powers, rarely used, but really meant to make sure that if there are high crimes and misdemeanors, there is a way to address them. If you start to dilute that and you start to use that for political purposes, it's not healthy for our country. And if we do feel like we live in a country right now where things are too strident or too combative, this trial doesn't solve that. I think it just deepens the rift.
Okay, but my question is, if it's unconstitutional to not hold this now former president accountable, what does it say for accountability to presidents down the road? Do they have a free-for-all to do whatever they want in the last 2 months?
Well, I think the answer to that question is clearly no. And when you look at if President Trump caused the insurrection and if he was motivating people to do that and there was a plot behind that, then that's unacceptable. It's not right. But I think the wisdom of the Senate will prevail. And like Greg said, I hope it doesn't get down to politics, petty politics, where you look like that you have a chance to keep your opponent from ever running again, and that's the motivation behind it. But clearly it can't be free for all. Nobody would want that.
Yeah, Glenn, I didn't understand your question because it was such a logical extreme. I will tell you this. Presidents care. They got libraries they want to build. There's a legacy that they want to have the American people remember. But here, the flip side of your question is this. If you know that at any point you could be impeached, even if you're leaving office in your final months, and that can be held against you, and that could be your legacy, what does that do to the remaining time that you have as our commander-in-chief? Again, whether you take it one way and say they could do anything they want, or they could be attacked for any reason or no reason at all, it's not a place that we should be. There's a reason why we've never seen ourselves as a country in a moment like we are living through right now.
Okay, logical, the new extreme. That kind of says a lot
Yeah.
about where we are today, right? And that leads into the next topic I want to get into. Greg, let's start with you. Infighting within the Republican Party. We saw Leader McConnell come out and direct comment about Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he said, quote, "Loony lies are a cancer for Republicans." What's going on within the party, Greg?
You know, it's unfortunate to see. You see this all the time. You'll see a presidential election happen, and immediately the attention goes to the party that didn't win. And I can't tell you how many obituaries I've read for either party and how they're not relevant anymore, and how you'll never see them in power again because of what's happened. It's a typical narrative, and it's one that I think that Republicans should be careful and not create circular firing squads. And we live in a time where you can go back to people, their past posts or whatever you want to do, and we can continue this cancel culture and go after people for things like that. But I'll tell you what, I think in both political parties today, we have a lot of people that are disenchanted. They are not happy with what they're seeing. Even within the Democrat Party, you're seeing I think a very big rift between your traditional unions, those that felt that they were defending the everyday man and woman, the working class, versus more progressive tones, and those that are looking at eliminating the combustible engine that maybe long-haul truckers might feel a little threatened by. You're seeing within their party, they're looking for their identity and how to bring people together. You're going to see it on the Republican side too. I'll tell you this, there were seats gained in a year where President Biden won. You saw that the Republicans gained seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, and right now we're at a 50-50 tie in the Senate, where many people thought it was a foregone conclusion Democrats were going to take control of the Senate. It was only a matter of by how much. You can't get more razor thin than 50-50 with a vice president having to break a tie. So it shows that this country is divided. There's no one path that one party has while the other party's been left behind. And I would say that the circular firing squads in any party is a wasted effort.
Scott, from a Democratic perspective, what are you making of what you're seeing play out in the Republican Party?
Well, it's a sad commentary on what's happening, and you can see the extremes in both the Democrat and Republican. I can tell you right now, if my good friend Greg Hughes was the Speaker of the House back there, or the majority, and I was the majority leader and she was in my caucus, I would have not put her on the Education Committee. I would have common sense conversation with her, just like I would with AOC, to say, please, we need to accept some facts here, and you're not doing good for our party. And that's both parties. But I can guarantee you Greg would take action on that. I would take action, and I had to do that when I was in leadership with some of my caucus members. So I look at the leadership back there, and I'm not so sure that they're not stepping up to what is right. I'm afraid that there's politics that are going on, and Representative McCarthy is standing on the side saying, well, you know, this might help us politically, it might not help us politically, what about these people? But that's not the thing to do. It's the right thing to do for citizens of the country. And I promise you that behavior would not be acceptable under either of our leadership.
Greg, what about the attacks from within the party geared toward Representative Cheney? She voted for impeachment. Lawmakers from other states now calling on others to run against her. How is that going to play out? What's the dynamic in the party there?
So Representative Cheney, she has constituents to answer to in Wyoming. Interesting, in Wyoming, one member of the U.S. House of Representatives, 2 U.S. senators. You don't see that very often. Usually you have a lot more representatives than you have just your 2 U.S. senators. So, you know, she'll have to answer to Wyoming constituents, and that's the process. The problem that we live in today is that you do see the ripple effect. You see other states, you see the commentary that blow these things out of proportion. To Scott's earlier comment, when you do work with legislative colleagues, you can work in a climate where these are not issues that everybody's privy to every sentence or every comment or every concern that is expressed. There's serious work to be done, and you see in legislatures and states all over the country that work being done. That carnival that is Washington, D.C. is a different place. And so you see circumstances that I think are unfortunate and don't lend themselves to getting things done in a productive way.
All right, unfortunately our time is up. Appreciate your insights today. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Glenn, for having us.
Thank you.
Stay here. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.